would definitely date a man who makes $30K per year and he's 6'2", just because I can fix him, I can change him, I can make him more driven.
Guys, welcome to Better Bachelor. My name is Joker with a face for radio and a voice for print. As you saw in that little intro clip, this is going to be a little bit of a fun interview where Courtney Ryan, this gal right here, she has a channel named Courtney Ryan, and she's got about 400,000 subs, so she's a little bit bigger than I am. And she interviewed several women and asked them, would you rather this guy or this guy, making women choose through various men. And I thought this would be something that would be enlightening for you, but also interesting. And I think the biggest takeaway here is that once you hear every girl's answer, I think they pretty much eliminate all men, except, again, the top percenters. I appreciate what Courtney did. I think it's a good interview, but even her interview process is biased. And I don't think she even realizes that. So we're going to talk about this as we go. I have taken her, let's see, her original video is 20 minutes long. I've clipped it down to about 12. I got rid of some of the shorter answers. If you want to see the whole thing, I do suggest going over to her channel, checking it out. She's got the full interview, but I'm going to be doing a shortened version. I didn't take anything out that would really mess with the girls' answers because that would be disingenuous. But what I did is take the important stuff out so you guys can kind of hear how this goes. We'll jump right into it, and then I'm going to stop along the way so we can talk about it. But if you just want to see the uninterrupted one, it's over on her channel. Guys, before I jump into that too far, make sure to jump. If you look in the links down below, I've got the code to sign up for either Jeremy's Razors or becoming a Daily Wire member. We are doing the contest where if we come in first place, we get $250,000 to put towards a men's retreat. We're currently in first place, but we do have Tim Bob and C-Dubs 1993 coming up very quickly behind us. So we want to make sure that we can win this and get this men's retreat for guys to have a vacation spot or a getaway spot or a place to hang out with other men. Any proceeds that I win from this contest will be going towards that, and I think it would be a really great thing to be able to give to the men's community. All the details are down below, and there's links down below if you want to know more about it, but maybe take a look at that so we can win this for a great guys retreat, and I appreciate it.
Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, I'm Courtney Ryan, and so I'm going to give them two different guys with two different circumstances or scenarios, and they have to pick which one they would rather date. So let's get into it.
All right, the first one is, would you rather date a guy who makes 30 grand a year and is 6'2", or a guy who makes $100,000 a year is 5'5"? So either tall and 30 grand a year, shorter, makes 100 grand a year. Like I said, I clipped out the audio, so I might have left this a little long.
5'5" guy. I'm 5'1", 5'2". Kidding?
So as long as he's taller than you don't care?
As long as he's taller
than you. Or
than
do you care
me?
about height at all?
So I've dated shorter men and I've dated really tall men. And I kind of like shorter better because I don't want to have to climb, you know? If you're right there, you're right there.
Well, 30,000, because just because you're making 30,000 doesn't mean you're always gonna be there. There's so many avenues you can go down.
Okay, so the first one, she sounded kind of legit on her answer. The second one, you can't change your height, but you can change your income. So she says, I'd take the taller guy because just because you make 30 doesn't mean you'll always make 30. Guys, this is one of the things that women do. They will chase the good-looking guys, even if he's not as successful, and they say that their lizard brain says, yeah, but he could make more. You just have to motivate him and push him. And what is this? It's changing who the man is. And that's literally her thought process. I will change him.
Like, I could be with somebody my height, no issue.
So it's just if they're shorter than you.
Mm-hmm. If they're shorter than me, then I feel like I want to feel small. I want to feel like, oh, like I'm so little next to this man. So I do like feeling that way.
What's interesting about that is if you look at the average women's weight, I think right now it's 165, 168 pounds here in the United States. It may be 170 now. And in kilos, that's roughly, what, 2.2 times less than that. I mean, you're talking, what, 75 kilos, something like that? You're still talking about a pretty heavy woman. If they still want to feel little next to a guy, they're going to need a really big, tall guy to feel little next to a guy if he's that big.
It's attracted. I'm like attracted to that.
Pretend they look exactly the same besides their height and their money.
Height doesn't matter to me, so I'm going 100K.
So you don't care about height. How tall are you?
I'm 5'3". So,
What if he was 5'2"?
I've done it. I've hung around. It's fine. It is a little awkward being like, because I'm so small, but yeah, they don't. I'm not a height person. I don't really care.
So she says she's not a height person. Did you hear how she responded? Listen to how she responded again to what if he's shorter than you? She's like, I've hung with it. I've dealt with it. There is no excitement. Dry as the Sahara Desert downstairs.
What if he was 5'2"?
I've done it.
Look at the look on her face. Ew. That's literally what she's coming across as like.
I've hung around. It's fine. It is a little awkward being like, because I'm so small, but yeah, they don't. I'm not a height person. I don't really care.
That's a girl that bounces the second a 6'1" dude flirts with her, or is like, "How you doing?" She's like, We're gonna take them for their face value, because if we all just say they're liars, then this video is a moot point. So we're gonna take them on their face value. But you can hear she's not excited at all about dating a dude that is even slightly shorter, and that's the girl that she'll find somebody else to replace that guy pretty quick.
I would definitely date a man who makes 30K per year and he's 6'2", just because I can fix him, I can change him, I can make him more driven.
I'll let her finish here, but again, it's always they don't want to accept the guy for who he is because he may have shortcomings or frailties or whatever. They're going to make him into who they want him to be. And if the 6'2" guy doesn't come around to that, she moves on, even if he's 6'2". She's going to try to change him, and if she can't, she'll find an excuse to move on.
I don't think it's a deal breaker because I'm 5'11" and I've dated 2 guys who are 5'8". So definitely, it's definitely not a deal breaker for me.
I know you guys want to see this all the way through, but the whole point is here again, she's dated 2 men that are 5'8". She knows that. She actually knows that number. Now, you guys that have had some success in the dating world out there, do you remember the heights of any of your exes? I sure don't. I could say, oh, they were around my height. They might have been a little bit shorter, a little bit taller. But I could date somebody for a year, and if you're like, how tall are they? I'm like, they're shorter than me. I don't know, 5'2", 5'3". I don't know. It's because men don't care about that stuff. She obviously does.
My personal opinion is I feel like I'm his mom, in a sense, just like walking through the shopping mall, holding hands, about to buy him a candy. But I definitely have a preference for taller guys, and it's rightfully so. Like, I'm not that annoying girl, like 5'2" girl who wants a 6'5" NBA boyfriend. Just save that for me, please, girls.
No, I think you are more justified than any other girl I've talked to about it because you are so tall.
100.
I'm going to pause it here again. She's 5'11", and so Courtney and her are both like, you're justified in wanting to date a taller man because you're so tall. You're 5'11". What she's basically saying, Courtney included on this too, right? So, and again, this is where I say Courtney brings some of her bias into this as well. She's like, you're kind of justified though, because you're 5'11". What she's doing is she's instantly saying, hey, you're justified in not dating anybody shorter than you. You're tall. And this is why women will eliminate so many guys out of the market, even just instantly based on their height. And you can say it's lizard brain. You can say, well, it's kind of encoded in their DNA because they want it because it's masculine or it's strong or it's whatever. That's the perception. That's fine. But when you give them a pass, so what about a guy my size, right? If I'm in really good shape and I'm low body fat and I'm I work out, but I'm not super like hulked out muscular. What if I'm only 145 pounds? Am I justified in saying, something? No, man, I'm only interested in women that are like under 130 or under 120 pounds, but I'm justified. I want a woman that is smaller or more petite or thinner than I am. I'm justified in that. I don't think I'd get a free pass on that. They'd say, oh, but all sizes are beautiful. But they won't say the same thing when it comes to men. You're justified in needing you need a taller guy because you're a tall woman. Okay.
Justified than any other girl I've talked to about it because you are so tall.
100K and 5'5".
How tall are you?
5'2".
Okay, so he's taller than you.
Yeah, he's taller than me.
Would your answer change if he made $100K a year and was 5'2" or 5'1"?
Probably.
You would choose the other guy if he was shorter than you?
I don't know. Maybe. You know what? Yeah, I would choose the other guy because I don't want, like, if we had kids, they would for sure be, like, midgets. And I wouldn't want that. I wouldn't want to guarantee that, is what I mean. If it happens, it happens, but, you know.
Let's face it, it wouldn't happen. She would not date a guy that's even shorter than her, even if he made 3 times the money of the taller guy. And again, I don't hate on these women for their preferences. Like, they're allowed to have their preferences. I think sometimes their logic is a little different. But for all the ones that are saying, I would take a shorter guy that makes more money, what they never discuss in this whole thing is, would you even bother to talk to that man? Would you even bother to introduce yourself to that man? If he came up and talked to you, would you give him the time of day to figure out if he made $100,000 or was successful or was smart? Because the answer to that, I think, in most of these cases is no. And we're not talking belles of the ball. These are not 9 and 10 supermodels. These are pretty average girls across a gambit of different looks. But what they're doing is, even though that you may call these girls relatively average, they're still finding a way to make even men that are better in different categories below them. And that's something that women are doing a lot nowadays. They don't even, like, don't judge a book by its cover. They don't even look through the whole library. They're only looking at the top shelf.
That is what I mean. If it happens, it happens, but, you know.
I'm only 5'3".
Okay, so you care about height.
I care about height, and I didn't care about height until I dated someone tall, like really tall. But now I feel like I've added that into my list.
So you got a little taste of the high life, and now you care about it.
I
Okay.
can't go back.
And why do you think women care about this, or why do you care about it specifically? Like, what about it makes you want it more?
I don't know. I feel like it's all for vain reasons or just reasons that don't even actually matter. So no hate to the short kings out there. But I don't know. It definitely is just like a mind thing, like feeling like the height translates into like leadership qualities, even though that is not true at all. It's just like a mentality.
Yeah, it's like kind of in your biology to look for it.
Yeah, I'd say like if you're shorter or relatively short, like just own it.
Like Liz, so what Courtney says here, again, this is lizard brain stuff. Women do like bigger, stronger, wide shoulders, narrow waist. Same thing with guys when they say, hey, I like larger chest, wider hips, narrow tummy, things like that. And I'm not going to hate on the lizard brain stuff. But, she says something that's very crucial and important here. She says, I dated a really tall guy once, and that got added to my repertoire. This is now something I look for. See, part of the problem and part of the issue that women are running into today is they're adding so much to their repertoire that the man that they eventually want to date and or marry and or be with is the impossible guy, right? And I don't know the statistics off the top of my head, but I've talked about them in other videos. To be 6 foot tall, you're in the top 10 or 15% of men. And so she'll say, oh, I've dated a tall guy before. That's now in my repertoire. And then she'll say, oh, I've dated a guy that was very successful. That's now in my repertoire. I've dated a guy that's really good in bed. That's now in my repertoire. And all these little things, even though she can't find them in one man, she builds this vision of the perfect guy in her head. And he is 6 foot tall, 6 figures, 6 inches, 6 pack, all the other things we talk about. And yes, she'll feel like she can settle for other men. But the man that she thinks she really deserves or should get is the guy that has it all. And this is the problem that we see so much in women. And if you look at this woman, again, I'm not saying like she's unattractive. She's not going to meet everything for guys. But guys will say, something, hey, I find this about her cute. I think she's okay here. I think this is something I can work with here. Guys are always looking at, like, does she meet my minimum requirements across the board? And does she maybe have a great personality or something that really stands out about her that I feel like I can really connect with? Women, it seems, on the other hand, are doing the opposite. They're finding like, I want everything at the very top that I can get. But if he falls short in a couple of categories, that may be a deal breaker. And again, we're not talking about creme de la creme women here. We're talking about a lot of average girls. But what they look for is not average anymore. The other thing is she knows that height doesn't relate to anything, being more powerful, being more charismatic, being better at anything, as far as in the business world. But she still can't help herself. She says, like, I know it doesn't even make any sense and it has nothing to do with anything, but I still view it that way. It's kind of an interesting tell, I think.
To then maybe get like shorter friends, and then it won't be as noticeable in pictures.
Short friends, take notes, everyone.
Her advice, by the way, because I kind of broke it off a little bit, she's like, if you're shorter, get a bunch of short friends to hang around you that might make you look a little bit taller. Like, do you think really men are walking around going, I got to be friends with that dude and hang out with him because he's shorter than I am and makes me look good? No, that's how women think, not how men think. Men would not do something stupid like that. Men don't get hang around with a bunch of heavier set dudes to make themselves look slimmer. Again, women's thinking is very different on this stuff than men.
I'm taking the short guy all day. I'm 5'3", that's tall.
But what if the 100K a year was 5'2"?
Oh, he's my height. As long as he's not shorter than me. Is he shorter than me?
An inch shorter, yeah. 5'2". You're 5'3"?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Dang it. I'm going with the 30K guy.
And she jumps right back to the tall one.
Sorry to say, I just don't want to. If we were to get married, I'm not crouching down or wearing flats. That's just not happening.
So as long as he's your height or taller, you don't care.
Totally.
Again, but the big takeaway on this, and this is something I say time and time again, would these women talk to the guy that's their height, or maybe 4'5" or 4'4", or 5'4", 5'5", that's maybe only an inch or two taller than her? Would they talk to these guys to find out if they had good money, all these other good qualities? I don't think so, but you guys can tell me down below. This one here says, would you rather date your dream guy, 10 in the looks department, but he wants to be able to sleep with other women besides you, but you can't sleep with other men? In other words, he can play, but the girl can't. Or a 7 out of 10 who treats you exceptionally well and is loyal. Now, before we get into these answers, here's my problem with this. And if you ever do this again, Courtney, I might recommend, instead of a 7 out of 10, how about a 5 out of 10? How about a 4 out of 10? What about a 5 out of 10? That's average. Because 7 out of 10 is still a catch. He's still a top 30 percenter. What about a guy that's 5? What about a guy that's average who would treat them exceptionally well? This is kind of like, guys, would you rather date a 10 that sleeps around or a 7 that's completely dedicated to you? Every guy is going to choose a 7. That's really this is not a tough question. And as a matter of fact, I cut out a lot of the answers because it's kind of a no duh. But I guarantee you, if she said a 4 or a 5 out of 10, who's devoted and everything else, versus a dream guy 10, that might be a tougher decision. And again, I cut
7
these.
out of 10. What are we talking about?
Definitely a 7 out of 10.
7 out of 10 all day. To me, he's not my dream guy if he thinks that that's okay.
7 out of 10.
The 7 for sure.
The 7 out of 10 any day.
Oh, 7 out of 10 every day. Loyalty every day.
So, see, she made that one too easy. And I think if she does it again, she needs to drop that down to a 4 or a 5. Like an average-looking guy, or even maybe a little less than average-looking, but would treat you amazingly well and stick by your side. Or would you rather be the 10 player? That, I think, would be a more challenging question for her. The next one is, would you rather date a guy who lives at home with his parents, a guy whose apartment is full of Star Wars memorabilia? Again, this is kind of a no-brainer. I didn't include all the answers because this is kind of an easy one. No woman really wants to date a guy that lives at home.
Okay, I've never seen Star Wars, but I feel like I can appreciate it. So if you live at home, or if you live on your own, and like, I don't know, I feel like I could come in and like move some stuff around if I really needed to. Like, it's not going to stay like that forever.
Now, I included her answer because all the others were like, oh, Star Wars, I can put up with that or whatever. But her answer, again, is very telling. I can change him. I can move things. I can take his hobby and I can put it aside and I can hide it and we'll get him past this phase of his life. Right? And again, if at the end of all of this, I think you'll find that almost every woman would end up not dating any of the men because she says, oh, I'll take a short guy that makes a lot of money, but he's only a plumber and he doesn't have a fancy degree. Or he likes Star Wars and I don't, so I'd end up trying to change that or put that in the... At the end of this, you'll find that most of these women really don't want kind of your average everyday guy. This one, she says, would you rather date a guy who has a luxury vehicle but has no other assets, or a guy who drives a worn-down 20-year-old car but he has a house, investments, and is good with his money? Now, this is one I've told you guys a lot, which is, don't worry about getting the new car and keeping up with the Joneses. Have good investments and things like that. But again, why I think this is kind of a disingenuous question is because you're basically saying, like, here's a guy that has everything except a nice car. Here's a guy that has a nice car but nothing else. And things don't really quite work like that. But again, we'll take it for what it's worth.
All day. Yeah, he's good with his money. I'm sure the car's coming at some point. So, yeah, absolutely. We're taking the beater.
And I included, because all of them said the same thing, but the reason why I included her answer, because it was the only one that was different, is, again, I'm sure the car will come at a later date. Like, oh, if he's got all this other money and resources, he'll get the car at some point. Now, maybe in his mind, he's like, you know what? I'm never putting money into a new car, fancy car. I don't see the value in it. That's never going to happen. All these women are trying to either change the guy or make the assumption of what he'll actually become. And if you don't become that, if you don't change and you don't miraculously come around in the way that they expect you to, you're going to get dumped and she'll move on and find the different guy. This one says, would you rather date a plumber who makes $200,000 or a lawyer who makes $100,000?
Let's go. Honestly, like, plumber would be cool because then they can do stuff for me. I'm not good at handiwork, so.
She's automatically looking at you as a fix-it man for her. Like, oh, they can do stuff for me. See, again, it's not who you are sometimes, guys. It's what you can provide for people. And that answer is a perfect example of that.
I guess the plumber, because I'm not going to hate on the grind.
I guess at that point, I really don't care. And why I say that is because the title is more important, I think, to my parents than to me. And I think my parents would be very happy if I was with a lawyer, even if he didn't make as much money as a plumber.
Probably the plumber, because he would probably win less arguments. You know, that'd be my thought. And he makes more money, so I'd get treated a little better.
Okay.
I want to pause on that one because that's an important one. She makes the assumption because, number one, she'd rather not date the lawyer because she'd lose more arguments. She wants the guy to not, she would rather be right more often than not. It doesn't matter if she is right more often than not. She'd rather win the arguments. And number two, and again, here, I'll play this again for you because.
Probably the plumber, because he would probably win less arguments. You know, that'd be my thought. And he makes more money, so I'd get treated a little better.
That's key too. She'd get treated better. What does that mean? See, when a woman would say to me, I want you to treat me well. I want you to treat me better than my last boyfriend did. My thoughts would be, okay, well, I won't do anything harmful and I'm nice and I'll take you out to dinner and we'll do activities together and I won't cheat on you and I'll be a good man to you. She's relating more money to being treated better. So what's she saying? She's saying, I want nicer things. I want a bigger home. I want a fancier car. I want a better lifestyle. That's what so when women are saying, I want to be treated better, it may be completely different than when a man says, I will treat you very well. It's not the same thing. She wants to be treated well by being given things and having a nicer lifestyle. That's what she's really saying.
Okay, I would probably choose the lawyer. And I don't know if it has something to do with the job title because both have found success, it seems like, you know, like he probably has like his own business, so that took a lot to get there. I don't know, I just feel like personal preference and fitting in with like what I envision myself, I'd see myself with the lawyer.
What she sees herself with, you know, her vision for the future. She sees herself as somebody that deserves a lawyer and doesn't deserve a plumber. It's very telling. I find this very, very interesting that a woman would just say, well, I envision myself with this person. And this is what happens a lot of times with women in the dating market. I envision myself with a good-looking man. I envision myself with a man with a very good degree. I envision myself with a rich guy. I envision myself with a guy with six-pack and everything else. Again, what they envision isn't necessarily what they deserve or should have, but because it's what they envision, that's what they hold out for. And again, I'm not hating on any of these ladies for their specific looks or anything, but what if the roles were reversed and a guy said, I envision myself with someone prettier than you. I envision myself with someone thinner than you. I envision myself with someone with a bigger chest. I'm picking specifically visual things for a reason. Because not many men say, I envision myself with a woman that makes X amount of money or is X height. Or most of the time guys are like, is she nice? Is she pretty? Does she sleep with me and physically satisfy my needs? Does she not disrespect me? Is she honest and loyal? What the men tend to look for, not all men, because, there are definitely exceptions out there, and same thing with the ladies, but the thing is, when men really think of a girlfriend, what do they think of? Do they worry about her money, her height, her hair color, maybe her physical asset size? No, not really. Guys boil it down to something that is way simpler to actually qualify for. Is she nice? Will she not cheat on me? Do I find her attractive? That's kind of it. And for every guy, the finding attractive thing is different. It's not, well, she's tall or she's short. I've dated women that are 5 foot tall and I've dated women that are 6 foot tall. I don't really care. I've dated girls that are like barely an A cup to girls that were double Ds. Don't really care. The one factor that really fell in the most important for me, did she treat me well? Did she respect me? Did she find me attractive and want to, be physical with me? And did she not lie, cheat, steal kind of stuff? It seems to me that actually it's men that are more looking for the emotional quality and women more looking for what does he bring to the table. But this isn't a surprise. We know this. This is, again.
Yeah, I would date the plumber who makes $200K just because your profession doesn't matter as long as you're a goal-oriented person or a driven person. You're hardworking. Yeah, those things are very attractive.
The plumber.
That one's been tough for girls.
Is it?
Yes.
Oh, I don't care.
Yeah.
As long as he's bringing home the bread, we're okay.
At least she's honest. Of all the girls, I think she's probably the most honest one. She's just like, hey, he's bringing home bank. I don't care what he does. But again, it's because he can treat me nicely. He can treat me well. He can make my life easier and my life better. And thus, that's why I want him. I don't think a lot of guys look at girls and say, I want to date her because she makes my life better or easier. What they might say is, she makes my life better, as in like I now have somebody that I can rely upon and care about. But men very rarely will look at a woman as a tool or an object that will improve themselves. And that's why women want to be with men really that are better than they are, because it gives them an advantage. Guys can't be with a woman and say, she gives me an advantage. More often than not, women are actually money sinks for guys. Women are a disadvantage for a guy as far as getting ahead, saving money, going on vacation where you want to go. But guys will make that sacrifice to have the woman. Women are the opposite. Women will only be with a guy if he adds to her life and takes away in no meaningful way. Maybe that's the best way to put it. All right, the next question. Would you rather date a guy who is a 9 with a body count of 100 women or a 6 with a body count of 5 women? Now, again, I'm going to call out Courtney on this because a 6 is still better than average. I noticed she never, none of her numbers go down below like 6 or 7. So even Courtney can't help but say, well, we wouldn't date a 5 That's not like 5 and below just isn't even on the radar to us. Only 6s and 7s and better are men that we would date. But I think you could look at these girls and say, well, they're not exceptionally way above average. Now, maybe you'd say, oh, this one's a 6 or maybe this one's a 7 or whatever. But again, men that are 5 and below are invisible to women. And Courtney kind of proves that with even her own questions. I don't think she realizes that, though. So they'd say 9 with a body count of 100 or 6 with a body count of 5 women. I know men's answers. If it was a woman who was a 9 with a body count of 100, and we're talking about date, not a casual date, would you have a girlfriend? You know, she says date, but I think she means it in the context of like long-term dating. If guys were given a choice of a 9 that has a huge body count or a 6, which is still a little above average with a body count of, say, 5 guys, I think almost every dude would actually choose the woman with a lower body count. Maybe I'm wrong. Again, let me know in the comments down below.
So I'm going to go for the 6?
Mm-hmm.
The 6 because I feel like, not that it's wrong, but if someone really needs that validation through sex and like really is all about it, that we probably won't be great together. So yeah.
I think that's the best answer. That would actually be my answer. Like if I were asked the question, I'd be like, high body count. If you need that validation or your ability to pair bond with somebody would be fried out, I'm not interested in that, even if she is smoking hot, because that's the same girl that'll turn around and find another dude in 15 hot minutes.
I think I have dated a lot of 9s with more than 100 body count, so definitely that.
Shocking. Why am I not? She's a Chad chaser. That's what she is. That's all. It's always height, money, good looking. She's like, whatever the fallout is, I don't care. I've even dated a lot of guys like that. Notice she says past tense because none of those guys stuck around. They had some fun with her and they moved along, or they were so awful. She's like, she broke up with them because they were out. But I've dated a lot of guys like that, and she hasn't learned from it yet.
I'd probably go with the 9, honestly. I know that he has a past, but I'm sure I could change him.
Again, I'm sure I could change him. And this encapsulates everything that we talk about, guys. Chasing the bad boys, you know, he's a 9 or a 10 or whatever. He's got a huge body count. He's just the player. He's just out there having fun. And what does she think? I date him anyway because I can change him. And what happens? She doesn't change him. He cheats on her or dumps her after he's had his fun with her, and he moves along, and she's left there going, oh, I never saw this coming. And then she turns around and does it again and again and again until she's 36 with 2 kids from different baby daddies, and she wants to settle down. And then she's looking for the plumber that makes $200,000 and the rest of it. That's when they decide to change it. But she even admits, I think I can change him. Guess what? You can't.
I think the 6, like if the 9 rating comes from like checks nearly all the boxes of what I'm looking for, then body count doesn't really matter to me, so I'd pick the 9. But if we're thinking only in terms of like looks and appearance, I'd go with the 6.
She had to think about that one really hard. But you notice she says 6 if we're just basing it a 9 off his looks. However, if he's confident and he's attractive and he's got a good career and he's funny and he's outgoing, she'd choose the 9 with the body count. And so what does she do? She chooses him, and he plays her like everybody else. Notice the 6 is not getting much traction here. In many of these cases, the 6 is just kind of, and that's what's happening. Now, what happens when that guy's a 5 and he's truly average? All these women, they chase after the player. And we talk about this in video after video after video. And women will always argue with us until you interview them in a different way. And then all of a sudden you find the truth, which is exactly like we've known it to be.
The 9? Did you say 9?
Yeah.
Okay, probably the 9.
Okay.
Yeah, I have to be attracted to you, so I would have to see the 6.
Okay.
You know, that's a tough one.
I feel like a 9, like I just will ignore the body count. We just won't talk about it.
There it is. Straight from the horse's mouth, straight from the lady's mouth. And this is why you guys are not getting success on dating apps. It's why you're struggling in the real world. Maybe if you're, average looking, which average looking is nothing to be, statistically, average looking is most men if you're average looking. But this is why you're not getting the opportunity, because women will take a 9 with a body count who will play them and use them rather than taking a 6, which is even better than average. We talk about top 10 and 20%ers all the time, and these ladies are basically saying, yeah, because if he has a high body count, I'll ignore that. I won't look at that. It gives a good insight into what kind of man he is, which is he's popular, he is desirable, other women want to be with him. So why wouldn't I want to be with that guy? Because everybody wants to be with him, but I'll change him. I'll convince him to be with me. That's their mindset. You've heard many of them say, like, oh, I'll just change him. But you're not going to change him. And what does he do? He just keeps doing it. He just keeps doing it. And so the 6 and the 5, the guys that are like, but I won't cheat on you. I'll be good to you. I'll do all these other great things. You're not even on the radar. The next question is, would you rather date a guy who has an income of 30 grand, but is attractive, in great shape and health, or a guy who makes 100 grand, but lives in a sedentary lifestyle and is obese? Now, again, and I'm going to make fun of Courtney on this. She makes you could say, would you rather have a guy that has a 6-pack and he's tall and he's attractive and in great shape and health that makes 30 grand, or an average guy who makes 100 grand? But she throws in sedentary and, she goes so far to say obese.
The guy who makes less but takes care of his life and himself.
Like I said, I like guys that have hobbies that are more on the athletic side. I think guys that take the time to take care of themselves, I find them more attractive. You could make 10 grand a year, but as long as you take care of yourself, I think that matters more.
30K.
I think like being active and taking care of yourself is more attractive to me. So I would rather be with them.
The first one, the 30K, but takes care of himself. I think part of me would try to my brain would probably try to tell me oh, go for the other guy, the one who's making good money, but there's no way my heart would let me.
The 30K man who takes care of himself.
I would date the guy who makes 30K per year, just because if you're active and you're healthy, health is wealth. Definitely.
And again, I think this was a little bit disingenuous, because when you're obese, you're talking about a very overweight, unhealthy person in some cases. Now, in many cases, unless he's a sumo wrestler. So to me, that kind of makes the decision a lot easier. But I've said it before and I've said it again. Women are becoming more visual and more shallow, kind of like guys are. And I don't mean that guys are shallow, but I mean that most of what men find attractive to a woman is her visual appearance. The less doesn't matter to guys because, again, historically speaking, a man can't be a man can't date a woman and get resources from her. He's got to provide. So if he has to provide, and he doesn't look at women as a resource, the only thing that's left is their personality and their looks, right? Where women will also look at men and they say, well, personality and looks and money and intelligence, and if he's a leader and he's strong and he's charismatic, they have a bunch more things. Guys are a lot simpler on this stuff. So when they say obese, instantly they're cutting out a lot of guys out of the equation, which makes it a lot easier for them to choose. But again, it kind of is what it is. But as I've told you guys also, go out there and hit the gym, lose body fat, get some muscle on your frame. And even if you're a little bit shorter, even if you're maybe not quite as, because again, Arnold Schwarzenegger is not a good looking man, but he had no problems with ladies. And hitting the gym is not you don't have to be rich to get a small set of weights, to do push-ups, to do sit-ups, to run, to keep your diet in check. It's that almost is free, and that's healthy for you anyway. But it will likely give you an advantage with women that think like this, so maybe you do get your foot in the door. It doesn't mean the relationship's any better, but at least you might get your foot in the door. Her next question here is, would you rather date a guy with a PhD who makes 100 grand or a dropout who makes 150 grand?
The dropout. I feel like you clearly found a way to support yourself.
I have a thing for dropouts, so I might be biased, but if you're a dropout, hit me up.
She is such a Chad chaser. She's like, oh, if you're a dropout of anything, please call me as long as you're good looking. She's just
PhD. He's smart.
Okay, so you would value the guy who has the education
And the intelligence.
Okay.
Oh,
What if the
absolutely.
dropout is smart, but maybe he just like
Well, see, that's a tough
Started a
question because I
business.
know a lot of creatives that have dropped out of college, and a lot of people, some of my friends have dropped out, and they're doing great. College isn't for everybody. So that's a tough one because I'd have to know him.
if you had to pick though, you'd pick the PhD.
I'd
makes
pick the
100
PhD if I had to.
so even though she's like, oh, I have a lot of friends that are dropouts that are very successful and doing okay for themselves, and it doesn't necessarily mean the PhD is. Look, you could be a PhD in social sciences and have a PhD. Doesn't mean you're smart. Trust me, I've listened to many people that are like, I have a PhD in this, and they say some stupid shit. And some of the smartest people I know are guys like farmers, are guys that maybe worked on a farm, and they're like, oh, here's how you fix a diesel tractor, and here's how you milk a cow, and here's how you do this with crops, and here's how you can tell the weather by the moss on the left side of the tree and the shade under. Like, there's all types of knowledge. But again, the assumption is because they have PhD and they spend a lot of money to go to college that they're actually the smart ones. And what you're hearing too, guys, is the selection process. And what I mean by that is if you say, hey, you know what? I'm 5'6", I'm a college dropout or a high school dropout or whatever, instantly, and again, this is if they even talk to you, right? You don't get a lot of times in the date, you wouldn't get an opportunity for the date to say, I'm a dropout, but I started my own business and I learned Python or something, and I came up with this app that I sold for $300 million. Now, I'm pretty sure if they heard that, they'd be interested in talking to you. But if you were just doing an A/B question, you're like, I'm a high school dropout, or I never really got into college much, and I'm retired at the age of 40, or I just travel, I'm kind of a beach bum. They'd never give you a second look, even though you might be a millionaire that created an app. And that's the problem with a lot of these questions, I think, and this kind of line of thinking, is because if you're just a 5 or a 6 or below, you never get the opportunity to share who you are as a person. And I think that's what pisses guys off the most. I think that's what makes most men just say F it to the dating market, is because they're like, I'm not even given a swing. I'm not even given a swing at the plate. And these women are they're kind of showing you that's the case.
I think the dropout is definitely the ideal guy. One, he didn't have to waste his money to know what he needed to make and what he needed to do. And I think he honestly made the smart move.
The dropout.
Dropout or PhD, like if the dropout, like if it's someone that is intelligent and likes to still learn and is into things, I don't think a PhD really matters. So can I not answer this one? I don't have an answer.
I think
I'll let her finish and then.
what you said earlier about the education too is like it's not so much about how educated they are, but more so, do we connect? Can I have a nice conversation with this person? Right?
Yeah.
So you wouldn't care if it was a dropout.
No.
If he makes more money, as long as you can have a good conversation with him.
Yeah, I haven't finished school yet. So like who am I to be like, you need a PhD? So yeah.
I would say probably the dropout.
What would your parents say about that?
They probably wouldn't love it. Yeah. And my grandparents would hate it even more.
What I find interesting about the blonde when she was like, oh, the PhD and the dropout. And can I just not answer this? Like, I don't know. I don't know, because it's like money or intelligent. I need to know him as a person. You hear that a lot from some of these girls. Now, I did clip some of that out because this was twice as long. But a lot of girls would be like, I don't know, like, what's he like as a person? But the problem is, I still feel that a lot of guys would not be given the opportunity to express themselves as a person. You just don't get there. Oh, he's short. No thanks. Oh, he's average looking. No thanks. Oh, he's a dropout or he's a plumber. No thanks. And that's it. And all these other amazing qualities that guys have that may not be necessarily the qualifiers that they're looking for, guys just don't get a chance to share that anymore. They're not even given the opportunity. This question is, would you rather date a 10?
A 6.
Oops. Would you rather date a 10? Let me see if I can.
Parents would
Sorry
hate
about
even
this.
more.
I got past. Okay. Would you rather date a 10 who can't satisfy you in bed, or a 6 who's amazing in bed? Amazing in bed. So a 10 that can't satisfy you, or a 6 who's amazing. And again, what does she do? She takes the extremes, but the 6 who's amazing in bed, he's still a 6. He's not a 5. He's not an average guy. These women are not way above average. I think we can all agree on that, depending on what you like as far as looks. But that now they're taking a perfect 10 who's an idiot and can't do anything in bed versus a 6 who's amazing in bed. I just don't think that's how about a 10 who's pretty good in bed versus a 5 who's great in bed? Then it might be a little bit tougher decision, but all the women are pretty clear about it.
A 6. Sex is important in a relationship. It's very important. And if you're not getting the job done, then you got to go.
I feel like a 6, like that's important. That's an important part. Yeah, a 6.
I'd say the first guy, because everything can be taught.
Okay.
But if it can't, and it's just going to be how it is forever, then I guess the 6.
I mean, if my guy can't treat me right, we're probably going to fight a lot. And I don't want to treat him like that, so I got to go with the 6 just so I'm not a bitch. That would suck. Yeah, no way. It couldn't work.
I would date a 10 who sucks in bed just because I'm self-sufficient.
Then the 6. Looks aren't everything, baby.
You know, I think I would go with the 10 and we can work on it.
And that's the end of the video there. And the reason why I like that last segment is because, again, I'd take the 10 and I'll change him. I'll teach him. And so she's teaching the 10, and the 10 has many other options, and the 10 will learn everything from this one and learn everything from this one, and then he'll continue on his path of dating and sleeping around and having his fun, and all he's doing is getting better, a higher body count, and he's getting better at it. So what ends up happening is he's a 10 who's probably like an 8 in the bedroom, maybe a 7 because he's selfish or whatever, and he's great. But what happens is the 6 never gets to be amazing in bed, more than likely. Why? He's not given a swing at the plate, man. The 5. You're not going to meet a 5 that's amazing in bed and a 10 that it doesn't know what he's doing. But you notice when Courtney interviewed these women, she never talked about an average man through this entire video. She didn't use an average man once, other than perhaps the guy that made $150,000, but he's like obese and lazy versus the athletic guy that makes $30,000. But you know something? Making over $100,000 is still not an average guy. That's still well over average, because I think the average income is now like $60,000 or $50,000, depending on where you live. That would have been an average guy. So in reality, in no part of this video did Courtney use an actual average man. She used men that were better, higher average income, higher average height, higher average looks, higher average being better in bed. Like everything is above average. And this only goes to show you that if you are an average man or below, you have to compensate in another area. If you're an average income earner and you're maybe shorter than average, you have to overcome that with being in excellent shape, like being a specimen when it comes to your body. If you're a specimen in the body, but you don't make much money, you're probably going to be okay if you're tall. If you're tall, but you're overweight, you're going to have a tough time. But if you're tall and athletic, you can make less money. It's always a summation of the parts. But all the parts that Courtney uses in this video are better than average. And so I don't want you guys to feel like you don't have an opportunity. But the fact of the matter is that even if you make great money and you're a plumber, how are you going to get the opportunity to talk to somebody? It's not going to be on a dating app. It's going to be in the real world. It's going to be you ordering a coffee at a coffee shop standing next to somebody and you say something polite like, hey, how's it going? Enjoying the weather? I like your dog. Whatever. Break in a conversation. See how it goes. Then when you start chatting and you say, oh, I'm a business owner. I started young, own my own business. I got 3 companies that what kind of companies? Oh, I'm actually in plumbing, but I'm kind of retired because I did so well. And you kind of got to backdoor it in there a little bit. But if you're overweight or you're not in good shape or, there's a challenge. And here's the question you have to ask yourselves, guys. And I mean this genuinely. If you want the opportunity to date, you're going to have to fight your way in now, especially if you're average looking, especially if you're average height or slightly below. You got to fight your way in. In the past, women would say, hey, you know what? He's a good man. He will support the family. He's a hard worker. I can see a good future with him. He's not going to leave me and the kids high and dry. But instead, women are now coming at dating like men do, which is, is he good looking? Is he hot? Who cares about a body count? Like, he's hot. I'll teach him. I'll train him. I'll whatever. I thought this was an interesting video, and it gives you kind of some insight. But at the end of this, when you look at the women's names, because on the original video they have the women's names, by the end of it, you realize that none of them actually want an average guy. None of them would be okay with an average guy. He's got to be better in bed than the average guy. He's got to be taller than the average guy. He's got to be better looking than the average guy. He's got to bring in more. Because if you told these women, would you want the dropout that's making $50K a year, who's, average health and average, or would you like average except he's a little taller, or average except, it's kind of tough. I don't know. Let me know what you guys think below. I kind of had fun with this one, and maybe I'll reach out to Courtney sometime. We should have a live stream. I'd like to get her thoughts on some things. Guys, don't forget we are doing well when it comes to the race for the retreat. We are currently in first place. If this is the first video you watched of this, if you sign up for Jeremy's Razors and get a razor purchase, or you sign up and become a member of Daily Wire, I'm leaving a link down below. Please use that. You give us points, and first place, we will get either this sports car, which I do not want, or we get $250,000 to put towards a men's retreat, which I'm using to buy the land and put a building on there and making some camping and tent sites. And this is going to be a nice community place where guys can come together and hang out, maybe make some friends, take a vacation, and have a legit place to chill. This Tim Bob's coming up on us quick. These two, Tim Bob and C Dubs 1993, they are coming up in the ranking very quickly. I don't know how far they are behind us, but we got to keep pushing this so we can try to stay in the lead and win this thing. So let's keep at it, guys. And if you have already, I appreciate it, and we'll see you in the next one.